But there's always been a gramophone in the house, one of those things that made Britain what it was at the time, you know, fit and healthy, because every 3 minutes you walked across the room and you wound up and then you walked back and 3 minutes later you did the same thing. I mean, it was better than a gym, really. That's why we won the Second World War, because we had wound-up gramophones, I'm sure. And that's why the nation's gone to pot, because you put on a record and you slump. And anyway, I had a splendid HMV cabinet-style wind-up gramophone with my mum's record collection. My mum was deeply into light music. So I was brought up on Gilbert and Sullivan and that sort of thing. I had a bit of a geekish, that was not a word we used at that time, interest in records as artifacts, I suppose, and music as a product of the artifacts. And I don't know whether that somehow transpired into this fantasy of being a sound man in a studio. And when I left school, because I just had mother and father were both very much working class background. Father was a factory worker, and my mother was during the war too. And at this time we were living in the outskirts of Bradford. And when I came to leave school, I said I want to do something in sound recording. And there wasn't very much happening in Shipley at that time in sound recording, and there still isn't actually. And I thought I'd just really like to get into this. Now I'm not technically, I'm useless with a soldering iron. I'm not particularly technical, but I do have this sort of warmth towards music and its creation. I mean, I don't play an instrument, for instance. I mean, there's nothing justifies what I've been doing for the last 60 years at all. I've been doing it, muddling my way through as best I can. This is 55 when I arrived in London. And for me, the 60s started at that point. I mean, it started in 55 for me. The big thing in the section that I was involved in was the Ewan MacColl Ale Lloyd led thing. It was a left-wing led thing. It was people's music led thing. MacColl and the WMA had published songs, industrial songs. A.L. Lloyd had brought out a book about coal, of coal mining songs and things like that he'd collected, but without leaving Greenwich, as far as I can make out. But I mean, that's a time-honoured way of doing it. And it was a time when Peter Kennedy at Cecil Sharp House was playing down, in fact denying, as far as we could understand, that there was any sort of input from industrial workers. 55, things were happening. Skiffle was happening. Elvis Presley was happening. Records were beginning to happen. The long-playing record and the 45 were alive. And when they'd started making records again in the 50s, they'd had to face the problem of purchase tax, which was, at that time, I think it varied a little from budget to budget, but there were times when purchase tax was 70% of the retail price, on the retail price of the record. Records were very expensive items, and deliberately so. Purchase tax was a reflection of how much the government considered such a thing was a luxury. And records were quite obviously entirely a luxury thing.